name is Tyler James Reynolds. I'm 17 years old, born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. I grew up in what you'd call a Catholic household, but let's be honest, it was more tradition than faith. My parents made me go to Mass on Sundays, sure, but I never listened. I'd sit there scrolling my phone under the pew while the priest droned on about sin, salvation, and some old saints I couldn't care less about. As far as I was concerned, religion was just noise, something adults clung to when life got too hard. It was their escape, not mine. But the Rosary? That was a special kind of joke to me. A chain of beads. People mumbled over like it had magic powers. My grandma used to carry one everywhere. She had this battered blue rosary that looked like it had been through war. She'd sit for hours just whispering prayers under her breath. Sometimes she cried while praying. I never understood why. I'd walk by and smirk. Still think those beads are going to change the world, Grandma? She'd just glance up, not angry, not offended, just sad. I once took her rosary, held it up like a relic, and made a parody video on my Snapchat. I pretended to bless a bowl of cereal with it, chanting in a fake Latin accent. It went viral among my friends. Everyone laughed. Even some of the teachers thought it was harmless teenage humor. But Grandma didn't say a word about it. She just kept praying. I thought she was being dramatic, maybe trying to guilt trip me. But now I know she was praying for me because she saw something I couldn't, something I refused to see. Looking back, I think I mocked it so hard because I was scared. Not that I would have admitted that, but deep down, I think I knew that if even a sliver of it was real God, heaven, hell, then I was in trouble. I lived like I owned the world. Skipping school, vaping in the bathroom, sneaking out at night, chasing popularity like it was the only thing that mattered. And if someone brought up God, I'd laugh louder than anyone else, just to make sure they knew I didn't care. But here's the thing. You can only laugh at something for so long before the truth comes crashing in. And for me, it came on a freezing Thursday night, February 2020. I remember the date because it was supposed to be a dumb party. Just a few of us skipping curfew, racing down empty streets in my friend Derek's beat-up Honda. No seatbelts, music blasting. Me hanging halfway out the window, yelling at the stars. I was high, drunk, and absolutely convinced nothing could touch me. Then came the bend in the road we didn't see, and in less than 5 seconds, everything I thought was funny, all the pride, all the mockery, it shattered. My body went flying, my skull cracked the windshield, and then silence. No pain, no breath, just stillness. And the next thing I knew, I was no longer in the car. I wasn't even on Earth anymore. I don't know how to explain it, because it wasn't like dreaming. It was real, more real than anything I'd ever experienced. 1 second I was in the car, my face crashing into glass, the world spinning. Then it all just stopped. Silence. Not the kind of silence you hear when a room goes quiet, but a deep, unnatural silence that wraps around you like water. My body was gone, but my thoughts were still there. I could think, I could feel. I was me, but without weight, without breath, without skin. I remember floating, suspended in something I couldn't see. There was no light, just a vast emptiness, stretching in every direction. At first, I thought maybe I was unconscious, trapped in a coma, or hallucinating. But then the fear kicked in, a kind of primal terror that gripped me when I realized I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't reach out. I just existed. That's when I felt something approaching. It wasn't a figure, at least not at first. It was more like a presence, cold, heavy, watching me from every direction at once. It knew everything, every lie I told, every cruel joke I made, every time I rolled my eyes at people who believed in God. Especially that day, I mocked the Rosary. I could see it now like a replay, me waving it around like a toy, pretending to perform miracles for laughs. That moment hit me like a punch to the soul. Suddenly, I was standing suspended before something massive. A veil lifted, and I was no longer alone. Darkness pulled back just enough to reveal a courtroom. Not one with a judge and jury. This was different. This was eternal. There were no words, no arguments, no defense, only truth. I saw my life not as I remembered it, but as it truly was. Every selfish choice, every cruel word, every time I knew better but still did worse. It all played out like a film, except I could feel the pain I caused other people. I felt my grandma's heartbreak, my mom's silent prayers, the sadness in my friends' eyes when I pressured them into things they didn't want to do. And then, something even worse, I began to feel the absence of God. It's hard to describe unless you've felt it, but it was like standing in a world where love never existed, where hope didn't breathe, where mercy wasn't a word. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I was naked before eternity, and I knew deep inside that I didn't belong in the light. Then I heard a sound, faint at first, soft, familiar, a whisper of prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace. It echoed like a lifeline across that void. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't even believe in it. But that voice, it sounded like my grandma. And for the first time in my existence, living or dead, I reached out, not in mockery, but in desperation. And in that moment, the rosary came back to me. I don't know how it got there. 1 second, I was suspended in this void, consumed by shame, judgment, and that crushing absence of God. The next second, it was in my hands. The rosary. Not just any rosary, her rosary. My grandma's blue, worn, and slightly frayed rosary that I had once mocked without mercy. I recognized every bead, every imperfection. My fingers weren't fingers anymore, but somehow I could still feel them smooth from years of love and sorrow and whispered prayers. The moment it touched me, everything around me changed. That cold, oppressive darkness began to shrink. I still couldn't see clearly, but something shifted, like a veil, had lifted just slightly. I heard more voices now. Gentle, steady, rhythmic, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, people praying, Hail Mary, full of grace, over and over, like a chorus rising up from earth, reaching into this realm. I knew without anyone telling me that these were the voices of people who prayed for souls like mine, souls who had wasted their time, souls who had mocked mercy and didn't deserve a second chance. And yet, the rosary pulsed with light, faint at first, but growing warmer, stronger. It wasn't just beads. It was a weapon, a shield, a lifeline. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was falling. I felt held, anchored, not saved yet, but no longer alone. That rosary, the very thing I laughed at, was now the only thing keeping me from being dragged away into something far, far worse. I felt pressure around me. The darkness didn't like this. It snarled. Yes, snarled. I can't explain it with human words, but it felt like something ancient and angry had just realized I was slipping from its grip. Shadows moved. They didn't want me to hold the rosary. They wanted me to let Godot drop it like I had all my life. But I couldn't. My hands, my soul clung to it with everything I had. I pressed the crucifix against my chest and said, for the first time in my life, Jesus, if you're real, please, please, don't let me go. That's when I saw her. My grandma. She wasn't dead, not yet. But somehow, in this strange space between life and eternity, I saw her, not with my eyes, but with something deeper. She was kneeling by her bedside, rosary in her hands, tears on her cheeks. She was praying for me, not because I deserved it, but because love doesn't stop just because someone mocks it. And that's when I began to feel it. A pull, a gentle tug away from the edge, back towards something bright, back towards something I never believed in, until I had no choice. As the light pulled me slowly from the shadows, I felt something I hadn't felt in what seemed like ages' warmth. Not physical heat, but a warmth that reached into the deepest part of me, the part I didn't even know existed. And then, everything around me changed again. I was no longer suspended in that dark, silent void. I was standing, yes, standing on something like solid ground, though it shimmered like glass and light all at once. Ahead of me was a great expanse, and, in the distance, I saw it. Heaven. It's hard to describe, because nothing on earth even comes close. It wasn't clouds, and harps, and angels floating around. It was life. A presence so beautiful, so full of peace and joy and love, it made me fall to my knees. Music without instruments. Light that didn't burn. Colors that don't even exist in this world. I could sense souls millions of theme, each one shining, each one rejoicing in a love that can't be measured. And in the center of it all was him. I didn't see his face. I couldn't. It was too holy, too radiant, but I knew it was Jesus. Not because someone introduced him, but because my very soul recognized the source of all love. The same Jesus I mocked in memes, the same name I used like a curse word. He was real, and I could feel his heart beating with more love than I'd ever imagined. But I wasn't allowed to move closer. Instead, I was made to watch, and I was shown what I had rejected. I saw every moment in my life when God had whispered to me, and I ignored it. Every time someone mentioned prayer, and I rolled my eyes. Every time my grandma asked me to go to church, and I said, maybe next time. I saw my childhood times I almost believed. Times I felt something during Mass and then stuffed it down because I thought it wasn't cool. I saw how much effort heaven had made to reach me. How many times God placed people in my path, priests, teachers, even strangers, just to give me a chance. And I saw what I was about to lose forever. Jesus didn't speak in words, but his voice filled me all the same. It was like thunder and a whisper at once. He said, "You were never unwanted, but you were ungrateful. And even then, I loved you still." I broke down, right there, in that place between light and darkness, because I realized I had been wrong about everything. The jokes, the mocking, the arrogance. I thought it made me bold. It just made me blind. And still, the rosary was in my hand. I looked down and realized every Hail Mary my grandma had ever said for me, every tear she'd shed while praying that prayer, they hadn't gone unheard. The rosary wasn't just beads, it was a rope thrown into the storm, and I had grabbed it at the last possible second. I wasn't in heaven, I wasn't in hell, but I was somewhere in between, and what happened next would determine everything. I stood there, clutching the rosary like it was part of me now. It didn't glow in my hands, but I could feel something radiating from it, like each bead was pulsing with 1,000 whispered prayers. And then I heard another voice. This one wasn't booming like thunder. It wasn't even male or female. It was gentle, personal, like someone had reached into my very soul and spoken directly to my heart. "Tyler, now you must choose." The moment I heard it, I froze. I didn't know what it meant. Choose what? I looked toward the light again, toward heaven, and felt that incredible longing. Every part of me ached to run into that joy, to be flooded with that love I had always mocked. But between me and that light was a chasm, deep and terrifying. I looked down into it and saw flashes of torment, faces screaming in sorrow, souls twisted by the choices they made in life, the smell of pride, the stench of despair. It was all real. It wasn't a joke, it was eternal. And then the voice continued, "The life you lived cannot enter there, but I offer you mercy. You may return and begin again, or reject this grace and be lost forever." I didn't answer right away. I thought about it. That's the scary part, I actually thought about it. Because I didn't feel worthy. I felt like a hypocrite, a fraud. Why would God give me a second chance after everything I had done? I had spit in his face every day of my life. I had laughed at the Rosary, used Jesus' name to get laughs, treated prayer like a punchline. And now, here I was, begging for grace. But then the voice said one more thing, a whisper, almost too soft to hear. "Your grandma asked me to give you this chance." She asked with tears in her eyes and the rosary in her hands. That broke me. All the times I rolled my eyes when she prayed, every time I mocked her soft voice as she counted those beads, she never stopped praying, never gave up on me. I didn't deserve this chance. But she asked for it, and God listened. Not because I was good, but because she believed in mercy when I didn't. Tears I didn't even know I could cry in that place. But they came, hot and painful, and I whispered, not with my mouth, but with everything I had left, "Yes, I want to live. I want to change. I want him." Suddenly, the rosary in my hand tightened. Light surrounded me blinding, beautiful, overwhelming. It filled my lungs, my eyes, my mind, and then everything vanished. And I was back. I gasped. Air rushed into my lungs like a tidal wave. My chest heaved violently, and I remember the paramedics shouting panicked, amazed. One of them was already shaking his head, assuming I was gone. But here I was, eyes wide open, body broken and bruised, but alive. The sounds of sirens, the cold metal of the stretcher, the stench of gasoline and blood, all of it hit me at once. But I wasn't thinking about any of that, because I was holding something. Still, the rosary. Not physically. There was no rosary in my hands when they pulled me from the wreckage, but in my spirit, my being, I was still clinging to it. I could feel it. Every bead, every prayer. It had imprinted itself onto my soul, and I knew without question that I could never live another second the way I used to. The EMT kept asking me questions. "Can you hear me? Do you know your name?" But I barely responded. I just kept mumbling, "Thank you. Thank you. Please forgive me," over and over again. I must have sounded insane. But I wasn't. I was awake, more awake than I had ever been. At the hospital, they said it was a miracle I survived. Skull fracture, broken ribs, internal bleeding, but no brain damage, no permanent trauma, just time to heal. The doctors called it luck. The nurses said I must have had angels watching. I just smiled weakly and whispered, "You have no idea." When my mom walked in, she looked like she hadn't slept in years. She rushed to my bedside, crying, hugging me. Behind her was my grandma, quiet, eyes swollen, rosary in hand. I lost it. I reached for her with both arms and sobbed like a child. I said I was sorry. I said I was so wrong. I told her what I saw, what I felt. She just held my face in her hands, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "You came back. That's all that matters." He heard me. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and the room was dark, I asked the nurse if she could bring me something from the chapel. I didn't care what else they gave. Morphine, bandages, ice packs. I needed one thing more than anything else in the world. I needed a rosary in my hand. The nurse came back with a simple black beaded rosary. It wasn't like my grandma's old blue one, but the moment it touched my fingers, something in me calmed, like a storm that had finally passed. I held it tight, so tight my knuckles turned white, and I just kept whispering the only prayer I could remember fully, the Hail Mary, over and over, not because someone told me to, not out of fear, but because it felt right. because it connected me to something that had already saved me once. That first night in the hospital, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it all again, where I had gone. The darkness, the judgment, the light, him. I couldn't forget it, even if I wanted to. It was branded into my soul. But I didn't want to forget. I wanted to remember forever. I wanted to change. Not just for me, but for the people who had prayed for me. For my grandma. For God. So I started learning the Rosary. Really learning it. Not just the Hail Mary, but the mysteries. The Our Father. The Glory Be. I asked the hospital chaplain to visit, and he brought me a little booklet with all the prayers. I read them with trembling hands. Not like a student, but like someone clinging to instructions for survival. Because that's what it was. My friends didn't understand. Some visited me in the hospital and cracked jokes, just like I used to. "Dude, you're seriously into that Catholic stuff now?" One of them said. "Is this a phase? Or are you joining the priesthood or something?" I didn't laugh. I just said, "I saw hell, and I saw heaven. I don't ever want to go back to the first." They rolled their eyes and left early. It didn't matter. I wasn't living for them anymore. I wasn't trying to be cool. I didn't care about followers or likes or jokes. My soul had been on the edge of eternal ruin, and I was given back. Every day since, I've carried a rosary with me. It's in my pocket, my backpack, sometimes under my pillow, just like Grandma always did. I even started praying it with her every night when I got out of the hospital. We sit in the living room, sometimes in silence, just moving through the beads together. And every time I reach the final Hail Mary, I cry, because I know I could have been lost forever. And the very thing I mocked the rosary was the thing that pulled me back. I mocked it, and now I'll never let go of it again. You might be wondering why I'm sharing this. Why a 17-year-old kid who once made fun of anything holy is suddenly talking like a priest. But I need you to know, this isn't just a story. This is real. I died. I saw what waits beyond this life, and I was given a second chance, because I earned it, but because someone prayed for me, because mercy is real, because God is real. I don't care if you think I sound crazy. I don't care if you mock me the way I mocked others. I've been where you're headed if you keep living like none of this matters. I felt the weight of my sins like chains. I tasted the terror of a life spent running from the truth. And I saw the kind of love that breaks through death itself, just to give a soul one more chance. The rosary isn't just beads. It's a weapon, a ladder, a bridge from here to heaven. It's the whispered prayers of mothers and grandmothers who refuse to give up on people like me, people like you. I mocked it until it saved me. And now, I keep it with me everywhere I go. If you're lost, if you feel like God is distant, if you think you've gone too far, you haven't. If he could reach into the darkness for me, he can reach for anyone. But I'm begging you, don't wait until you're inches from eternity. Don't wait for the crash, for the silence, for the darkness to show you what's real. Pick up a rosary, just once, even if you don't believe, even if it feels silly. Just hold it, pray it. You have no idea how many people in this world are praying for souls like yours. I came back with a message, not from myself, but from him. He's waiting, and his mercy is greater than your doubts. So, now I live differently. I still have scars. I still struggle. But I don't walk alone, and I never let go of the rosary. Not because it's magic, but because it connects me to the only love that never gave up on me. This is Tyler Reynolds. I'm 17, and I was dead. But now, I live